My question is to the Premier. As you're well aware, Premier, your Sudbury Liberal kingmaker, Mr. Jerry Lougheed Jr., told your former candidate, Andrew Olivier, that, and I quote, "I come to you on behalf of the Premier."
Oh, really?
And that they, meaning your office, and I quote again, would like to present, in this case, Mr. Olivier, options in terms of appointments, jobs, whatever. End of quote.
I think the
Premier, this backroom political dealing seems a little dubious. So dubious, as a matter of fact, that the OPP is investigating Mr. Lougheed, a man who happens to be your appointee to the Greater Sudbury Police Services Board. I just don't see how we can lead a police service board while being under investigation for bribery by the OPP. Premier, will you remove Mr. Lougheed from the board until the OPP finishes their investigation?
Got a lot of cleaning up to do.
So, Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows, police service boards are responsible for the provision of adequate and effective policing services in the municipality. I understand that the Sudbury Police Services Board addressed this issue last week. They took a vote, Mr. Speaker, and they voted to have Mr. Lougheed remain in place. They made that decision. We don't direct the Police Services Board. They made that decision. They want to keep him. They want to keep him involved. And Mr. Speaker, to the preamble that in the member's question, you know, I talked about wanting to keep this young man involved. There are many ways that people can stay involved, and all of those things, there would be an application process. There would have been a process through which he would have had to go to get any of those positions. Those were options, those were suggestions about how that young person might want to stay involved. As I've said, I think that those are conversations that I would hope leaders would have with past candidates on all sides of the House, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Premier, Mr. Lougheed informed Mr. Olivier that he would tell the Premier to call him. He coached Mr. Olivier to ask him,
Deputy House Leader, second.
"What are you giving me for me to step down that is worthwhile?" And I think that's the point. Only you and the Premier can have that conversation. Mr. Lougheed's comments to Mr. Olivier.
Where's the tape?
Well, Premier, either you were aware of specific job offers or Mr. Lougheed was making unacceptable claims on your behalf. But this is a possible breach of code of conduct that all members of the Police Services Boards are subject to, Premier, and I've asked the Ontario Civilian Police Commission to investigate.
Yep.
So, Premier, were you aware of a job offer? Will you remove Mr. Lougheed from the board until the OPP finishes the investigation?
Yep.
Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services.
Minister of Community Safety and Corrections.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And as I want to restate what the Premier said, I think it's a very important point that police services boards are responsible for the provision of adequate and effective police services within their municipality. And among their duties, Speaker, police services boards generally determine the objectives and priorities with respect to police services within their community and establish policies for the effective management of those police services act. Speaker, the Police Services Act does not give the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services any authority to remove a board member, as all board members of a police services board are appointed by the province or municipal council, and they're subject to a code of conduct, which is in a regulation under the Police Services Act. In this particular instance, as we know, the Police Services Board looked at this matter, they considered this matter, and they voted to keep the chair within his position. If there is a breach, OCPHC has to investigate the matter, Speaker.
Thank you. New question. The member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, my